Ngebasojola here. I've just seen a news report that has just been released, right? That states that Yemen is going through its sixth round of airstrikes, right? And it seems as if they are not really having an effect that they really wanted, right? Ultimately, the reason for the airstrikes is to reduce the capabilities of the Houthis, right? Of them attacking um, ships that are passing through the Bab el Mandab Strait, right? And the Red Sea, right? But with this sixth round of airstrikes, right, it seems as if they have really no effect on the military infrastructure and installations of Yemen. Now, when we look at the various methods, right, that are employed in preserving the attack capabilities of the Houthis, right, it's a number of methods are used, right? The first one is that their launch pads and missiles, right, are deployed from a mobile um, launcher, right? It means this launcher can literally sit at the back of a truck or a van, right? And release rockets, right? So you can move it at will, right? You can hide it, your equipment during the airstrikes, and then move the equipment to a place where you think it won't be detected by radars of the enemy, and then launch a rocket or a missile. Another method that they are deploying is a method that they basically learned from Iran, right? Which is learning how to build, right, underground facilities to preserve your military equipment, right, and military personnel. These underground facilities range from bunkers, right, reinforced tunnels, um, caves, right? And sometimes mountains. But when we look into the history, right, of Yemen and the Houthis, we come to realize that they have been bombed by the United States and Saudi Arabia, right, from March 2015, right? It means the Yemenis and the Houthis have been under US bombardment and Saudi bombardment for about 9 years, right? When we recall there has been a war in Yemen for about 9 years, I think it started about 2014, right? When the Houthis took the capital of Yemen, Sana'a, right? And they were hit with an economic blockade, right? An air blockade and a sea blockade, right? And then I wouldn't say exactly a year later, right? But around March 2015, right? The bombing of Yemen started, the air campaign of basically trying to reduce Yemen into rubble, right, began, right? Now, the level of bombings here, right, caused a lot of devastation. It caused something the international community dubbed as the worst humanitarian crisis in modern times. Now, during the War, the country which was doing the bombing and the air campaign and mostly the airstrikes, right, was Saudi Arabia. It was particularly using American equipment, namely an F-15 fighter jet, right, and actually using this to bomb military positions that the Houthis have established throughout, particularly northern Yemen. Now, the role of the United States, right, in the bombing of Houthis, to be specific, right, was of a nature of a refueling, right? So There's this thing that you can do with fighter jets that you can refuel while they are still in the air, right? So that they last longer on their missions still flying, right? If a fighter jet lasts about 24 hours flying, right? When you refill that, right, it can basically last longer in the air, meaning, right, your bombing campaigns and your airstrikes, right, can last longer and they can be more lethal. It is believed that a third of the bombs or the third of the airstrikes which were conducted by Saudi Arabia and the United States, right, basically hit civilian infrastructure, non military installations, things like hospitals, clinics, schools, right? Marketplace, right? There was this huge bombing also, which happened at the port of Hodeida, which ultimately destroyed the ability of Yemen to receive aid and food and commodities like that. That actually caused the worst humanitarian crisis that you've ever seen in modern times, right? It is because of the bombing campaign that Saudi Arabia waged on Yemen, right? So when you are being bombed for 9 years, you tend to learn how to live with this, right? And how to counteract it, right? Various methods were deployed, mobile launchers, right? And going underground, establishing underground facilities. So, for you to understand the extent of the lethal air campaign or airstrikes that Saudi Arabia waged on Yemen and the Houthis particularly, they went to a point to bomb funerals, right, weddings, and even sports games. So the premise that Yemen is only going through its sixth round of airstrikes is wrong. Yemen is actually going its 10th year of airstrikes.